All good? Great. Right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this April 28th council meeting. Can I do who's on line that I can pick on for a sound check? Can someone unmute and just let us know that you could hear us?
Can't unmute themselves.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I just asked.
Hi, Valley Voice, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move into the agenda. So we've got the first item of business is adoption of the agenda. If there's no additions, that the agenda for the April 28th regular meeting of council be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leithwood. Anyone opposed? That motion is carried. Welcome, Councillor Lang. I can see you up there. Thanks for joining us. And all right, and then adoption of the minutes. If there's no errors or omissions, the recommendation is that the minutes of the April 14th, 2026 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented. By Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leithwood. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion is carried. Move into general matters. So we have no art at council for this evening, and we will move into the presentation from CAO Baker on 2026 tax rates.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt. I will share my screen. So council's already received two presentations with respect to the financial plan. One was for discussion and the second presentation was the draft budget. And now we are tying things together through the tax rates bylaw. So staff will walk you through that process. It's worth noting the legislation that we're required to follow. Section 165 says that council must adopt a financial plan bylaw that sets out the tax levy. And then section 197 states that council must adopt a tax rate bylaw that takes the levy and applies it with the BC assessment values so that we can apply our property taxes. So it's a 5-step process. Council has already completed a couple of the steps, including step 1. You've already developed a financial plan and identified what your tax levy will be, what the tax revenue requirements are. Step 2 is not for council. It would be for the other parties that appear on the tax notice, the regional district, police, fire, BC assessment, the finance authority, and the hospital. So they've determined their requisitions. Step 3, council has already taken a look at through your financial plan bylaw. Step 3 is then BC assessment, is applying property assessments to the 9 property classes, and that work has already occurred. Step 4 then is back to council, and you have already completed that work, which is determining the ratios for the 9 different property classes. And the last step would be calculating the tax rates based on those ratios. So I'm going to walk you through those steps 4 and 5. To refresh council's memory, there's a tax levy proposed for 2026 of $929,000, which was an increase of approximately $82,000 over the previous year. That levy does not include non-market growth, which would be new properties that have been added to the assessment. The second part of the process would be the requisitions. Regional district, hospital, school, police, etc. have all provided their requisitions to the village, totaling approximately $1.6 million. There's then approximately $900,000 for the village, for a total of requisitions of approximately $2.5 million. So overall, it's a 7.9% increase in requisitions over last year. The village makes up 37% of the requisitions that are on the tax notice that our residents receive. The other 63% is regional district school, police, hospital, MFA, BC assessment. If we dove into the village's assessments, we'd find that 93% of the property value assessments are residential, 6% being business, and then a few of the others. So largely residential with our tax value, our property tax base. If we broke apart that 93% residential, we'd find that there's 539 properties that are single families, 185 that are residential vacant land, 30 that are residential strata, 25 that are ALR. And so if we took a look at the 9 different classes that BC assessment has identified, we can see there's about $315 million in assessed value attributed to residential, which is a -1 change, -1% change. So our assessments have gone down. Utilities, 839,000, a 1% increase. You'll see that for supportive housing, major industry, managed forest land and farm, there's dashes on this table you're looking at, and that's because we don't have any properties that fall into those classes. There's about $400,000 in assessment for light industry, an increase of 3%. Business, there's about 21 million, an increase of 4%. And then recreational nonprofit, just over $500,000, saw an increase of 5%. Should I pause and see if there's any questions related to the assessment so far?
Councillor Leaflet.
To the chair. So you said that even though, like, when you listed all the, places that taxes get collected, like the police and RDCK. So even though we're increasing our taxes by 9%, there's only a 7.9% change. What do you mean by that?
So if we look at this slide here, near the bottom, there's just above overall, there's the village line item.
Right.
929,000 in, that's the tax levy, and that shows a 9% increase.
Mm-hmm.
But when you take in all of the increases and decreases from all of the different organizations, overall, it would be a 7.9% increase in requisitions.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that that's what the average property will experience. It just means that overall, 7.9% increase in requisitions.
Supplemental.
One more question. And then you said under residential, the slide a couple, when you were saying how much we collect from those. It said minus 1%.
Oh, yes. Let me find that slide. So what, should I explain that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so what BC assessment has done has said that, forgive me, I don't have the number, but last year, the value of all of the properties in Kaslo for residential were something like 325 million. This year, it's valued at 315 million. So their property value assessments have gone down 1%.
Thank you.
Through the chair, just as a point of interest, the multi-residential buildings have gone up 28%. I don't understand why.
That would be a BC assessment question, I guess, not our staff, but Councillor.
Through the chair, for number 8, recreational nonprofit, like what is that referring to? that it was assessed at $538,100.
Any property that BC assessment has meets the definition of recreational nonprofit for them, they've classified as recreational nonprofit. So there's several properties that the village owns along the Kaslo Bay, for example, would be recreational properties. Yeah, I'd say probably yeah. And then any other that are owned by nonprofit organizations.
I would suspect those would be the ones that we're giving the permissive tax exemptions to. They would still show up on our assessment roll, but we just don't tax them. Would that be correct?
And yeah, so maybe I should refine my words. So permissive and statutory exemptions are not included in these values at all.
Okay,
So any organization that has statutory or permissive tax exemption, not reflected. So it'll simply be properties that have otherwise been designated recreational nonprofit by BC assessment.
Councillor Bird.
Through the chair, so last year there was a farm, but this year there's no farm?
There was a dollar value attributed at $461 or something like that. But the assessment's been provided to us by BC assessment indicates zero. So I can't really comment on what happened to it.
Probably still there, but it's just so negligible that it doesn't show up as like a 0.1% or.
Okay.
Because it wasn't very high at all.
Should I return to the slides?
Are you okay to move on? Councillor Lang, did you have any questions? Okay.
So this slide gives council an idea of what BC or what property value assessments have done over the last 13 years. So since 2013, more than doubled for residential properties. Which takes us to step 4, which is determining tax ratios. Within your financial plan bylaw, there is this table, which establishes what the ratios are. So typically organizations will choose a ratio of 1 for residential, and that's what everything else is being compared to. So in Kaslo's case, utilities pay roughly 10 times the amount of money that a residential property would be assessed. And I don't believe these ratios have changed in the last few years, at least since staff have been here. But what we will do is walk through these ratios to give council an idea of how to interpret them or how to view these numbers. So, as I said, residential, very normal for residential to have a ratio of 1 as the baseline. Utilities, not unusual to have 20 to 40 times compared to residential. And the reason for that is there's a very small utility assessment base and typically only a single utility provider. Supportive housing and recreational nonprofit, they're established at 1 and 1.07 respectively. Typically, they stay pretty close to residential in order to give them an advantage for their nonprofit status. That said, we don't have any supportive housing in Kaslo.
Councillor Bird, did you have a question?
Through the chair, just pointing out that we don't actually have supportive housing in Kaslo.
And then, just as we don't have supportive housing in Kaslo, we also don't have major industry or managed forest, but nonetheless, we include them in our ratios in case there's a reassessment done and all of a sudden there are properties that fall into those categories. It's important for us to have ratios available. So Kaslo's ratios of 3.4, 2.85, and 3 are above what is applied to residential and totally within the normal realm of what you'll see throughout the province, applying higher rates to industry. Similarly, business and other 2.45 as the ratio, not uncommon to try to shift some of the tax burden away from residential and towards the business community. So that is commentary on your tax ratios, which takes us to step 5. We have to ultimately do something with these ratios. Council's determined the tax levy of $929,000. BC assessment has determined the total property value assessment for all of Kaslo, as well as the assessments for each of those 9 classes that we took a look at. In total, all 9 classes, there's a $338 million property value assessments for Kaslo. But we have ratios that need to be applied. And so what we do is we'll take the municipal tax levy of $929,000 and divide it into a weighted assessment. So let's say there was 330, forgive me, what was the residential? 315,000 for residential. So there's a ratio of 1. So it stays at 315 million. Utilities is at 839,000, but there's a ratio of 10. So that means the weighted assessment is going to be $8,839,800, something like that. Does that kind of make sense? And so what we do is we apply the ratio to all of those different classes. We add it up and we divide the municipal tax levy into it. That gives us this base tax rate of 2.46, meaning residential has a tax rate of 2.46. Utilities had a ratio of 10. So that means that their tax rate is going to be 24.6546. We then apply the ratio to all the different properties, dividing the property's assessed value by 1,000 and then multiplying it by the appropriate rate. And after all that math is done, we end up with what impact is that going to have on the average single family? So average single family property in Kaslo is valued at $518,647 for this year. Near the bottom of this table, you'll see the village's tax of $1,278.70 for that average property. And that equates to an increase of 7.62% over last year. So even though you had a 9% general tax increase, once it's applied through the ratios, it's at 7.62, which is $90.58 the average property will pay, more than last year. If you divide it by 12 months, $7.55 per month is the tax increase for municipal taxes. And overall, this average property would pay an additional $238,000 compared to last year. Staff have also performed a similar calculation for the average business. So average business valued at roughly average business property valued at $50,000. In 2026, they'll pay $301 in taxes to the village, which is an increase of roughly $29 over last year and equating to $2.41 a month increase in taxation. One of the slides that is not included in your presentation in your agenda is this one on BC homeowner grants. So notwithstanding the, I'll go back a couple of slides here. So notwithstanding the $3,463 in total taxes that the average family home will be subject to, we have our BC homeowner grant, which will deduct $770. And if you are a senior or veteran or person with disability, then the grant will be $1,045. So you would deduct that from the total we saw in the previous slide. And there's a bit of information available here, so the public knows where to go to make sure they claim their homeowner's grant. Important to note that if we take the village's property tax, just over $100 a month, and insert it amongst the average monthly costs for a four-person family in British Columbia, you can see where it fits in their monthly budget. So similar to buying a $3 coffee a day or the cost of phone, cable, and internet. That would be for parks and our recreational facilities, roads and grounds and sidewalks. Separate from that would be water and sewer utilities. So not every property has a sewer service. So we separated them out and you'll see them at the bottom of this chart. That's the tax rates presentation.
Right. Any questions for CEO Baker on the last part of the presentation? Councillor Leithwood.
Just a general question. Does the homeowner grant increase at all, like yearly?
Through the chair, no. And from what we understand, the province is going to remove the $200 bump that the homeowner grant was given several years ago. So in 2027, it'll be gone.
Oh. Okay.
Questions? Right. So agenda then. And that brings us to public input. So if there are any verbal submissions for council, you can unmute now and ask. So the public may address council on items of business appearing on the agenda. And if you would like to speak, please state your name and you will have and place of residence, and you will have up to 2 minutes to speak. And once all members of the public who wish to speak have spoken, council will have the opportunity to ask brief clarifying questions. And council will not engage in debate. And if the speaker's input relates to operational issues, staff will be happy to assist you during regular business hours. Are there any questions from members of the public? If you want to, if you can indicate by raising your hand, your virtual hand, that would be great. Because nobody's unmuted. Or turn on your camera and that would give me an indication that you might wish to ask a question. Right, I do not see anyone indicating that they wish to speak. So for written submissions, we did receive one item of written public input on items of business appearing on tonight's agenda. And these items have been circulated to council and are available for public viewing. We will move into reports from council and staff. Do any members of council have reports that they'd wish to submit at this time? Either they can be verbal, or if you wish to wait and submit a written one for next time, that's fine too, because it's a short time between our meetings, and I know it's been busy. Councillor Brown, go ahead.
Through the chair, a written report for AKBLG, which I was able to attend a few weekends ago, will be forthcoming. But for now, I just thank the Village of Kaslo for the opportunity to go and participate at AKBLG. There were sessions that were of particular interest to me around local housing solutions, community engagement, and healthcare that I found a huge amount of benefit from. And I think the City of Trail did a really great job at putting on an AKBLG and showcasing what made them special. So I really enjoyed myself and found a lot of value in it.
Thank you. Councillor Bird?
Through the chair. Yeah, I echo that. Thank you for the opportunity to go. One thing that occurs to me is it can be a little bit isolating, this job, being a counselor, because you do your research on your own and maybe you're one-on-one with the public, but to have an opportunity to be with a whole, not just our own council, like those of us who could come, but just to be around other people that have been doing it much longer than I have. There's a great deal of like mentorship and camaraderie, and you sort of get a boost about, yeah, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's really valuable. It just gives you that impetus to carry on. And I can't think of any other way that would happen except for these kinds of events.
Thank you. Councillor Leaquid.
To the chair. This is not a committee I'm on. It's just, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the Aging in Kaslo Fair that happened on the weekend. It was very successful. Over 100 people came through. There were about 30 organization or people representing organizations. And we had 3 presentations that were very well attended. One was on fraud through PSC, and then one was on the long-term expansion plans. And yeah, so it was a very successful event, and hopefully we'll make it a yearly or, every 2-year event.
All right, thank you. All right, so I've also been busy, attended AKBLG, and as the other 2 members of council who spoke had said, it's a great opportunity to connect, and I did have the opportunity to attend the pre-conference session, which was so intense and so jam-packed that there is absolutely, I don't think anybody could take sufficient notes. He spoke so fast, and there was a lot of really good information, and I saw the email come through today that the materials have been uploaded for viewing through AKBLG. So it'll be good to see what they have compiled for that. There was a presentation, and the presentation barely scratches the surface about what he talked about. So it was really good. And after AKBLG on Sunday, I moved to Castlegar, and then Monday morning, I participated in a housing initiatives task force meeting in person at the CBT office. And then I came home, spent a few hours with my husband, and turned around and left early the next morning to go to Victoria for Municipal Finance Authority AGM. I am appointed through the regional district to that board, and again, that's another fascinating one, and it sounds like it might be a good time for, I don't know whether the village has investments with MFA, but it sounds like they've got some new and innovative funds that we could be putting money into if we have some that we have available to invest. And so that's why, and I got home on 8 o'clock on Friday night and been working since then. But it's all, I appreciate the opportunity to go to these sessions and spend time with other members of council and from other communities. Had some great networking sessions at all of the sessions that we attended. All right, and now we'll move on. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lang, did you have anything to report? You're probably thinking, oh, I hope she doesn't call on me. All right, thank you, Counselor Lang. All right, so we'll move on to CAO Baker's report. Oh, did you have something or? Oh, can you unmute Counselor Lang?
I've asked him to unmute.
Oh, you have to unmute yourself now, Counselor Lang.
He was on.
All right.
Can you
Sounds
hear
like you're-
me?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Yeah, if I'm sorry about the confusion. I rarely have anything to report, so I didn't want to miss out on this opportunity.
Well, usually you wave like, no, 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 I don't want to talk.
Yeah, right. Yeah, while the mayor was away traveling the world,
Oh,
I attended the RDCK meeting, board meeting in her absence
great.
a couple of weeks ago, and as usual, there was very little on the agenda that had any impact at all on Kaslo. There was one item that related to the fire department, and it was just basically a policy change that allowed the fire department to do what they're already trained to do. So it was a paperwork shuffle, and that's all it was. So so yeah. So thanks for the opportunity. It was good to see some of the guys that I hadn't seen for years. So um, thanks again for the opportunity.
Well, and thank you. That was on my, I even typed that on the top of my notes and I forgot to say it. I
Right.
appreciate that you were available to attend that meeting on my behalf.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Kaslo's fire department is now interior rated, not just exterior. So that's it was good news. All right. So now, and I apologize, Counselor Lang, for misunderstanding your hand signals. All right, so CAO Baker.
You, Mayor Hewitt. So there's a number of updates for council at this meeting. One would be the village's website's been updated to include a page dedicated to finance as a consolidation of all the 2026 financial information that council's received and has references to BC assessment. So if the public's curious, well, what are these 9 classes and how do they assess our properties? There's links to videos on YouTube for BC assessment. So really good resource for the public. And over the next 2 weeks, staff will refine that content to make sure it stays up to date with any decisions that are made by council. Buildings, facilities, and properties, we have an update. There's a request for proposal we're hoping to issue to have building condition assessments done on City Hall, Kemble Memorial Center, and other buildings owned by the village. That's funded through a grant that we received a few years ago or a couple of years ago. And all of that data would then be used to complete our asset inventory and inform a 5-year capital plan for council's consideration. So really important piece of the puzzle. We have really good data on water, sewer, roads, but are thin when it comes to our buildings. So this is a big step forward. Similarly, we have good data on our equipment, but staff are going to go back and review the equipment replacement policy and charge out rates so that we can have better long-term planning for life cycle replacement. Right now, what council receives would be hey, this truck is at the end of its life and we need to replace it and we're looking for funding. But there hasn't been a lot of financial planning involved in making sure there's money available for those kind of expenses. So what we're hoping to put in front of council would be a process whereby for every hour that a piece of equipment is used, there's a charge out rate applied to it. And that money is then put into an equipment reserve. And then every hour, another $10, $250, whatever it is for that piece of equipment. So that when it comes time to replace that piece of equipment, the money we know is already there and council isn't having to figure out where to pull money from to fund these expenses. So a very important part of what will be the 2027 budget process, making sure we have funds set aside. Public relations, the village's website also has the ability to support electronic news subscriptions. So that'll give residents the ability to opt in to notifications and updates on water advisories or employment opportunities, bids and tenders. So that is now operational and staff are looking forward to using it and testing out, keeping the public up to speed through our e-news capabilities. Kootenai Lake Partnerships, council might recall that that's our relationship with Tanaha with respect to Kootenai Lake and regional districts on board. So staff have a meeting in Creston for the Kootenai Lake Partnership on May 8th, and we'll report back with any updates for council or items that might need your direction. Legal matters, to give council a heads up on Kaslo Racket Club is looking to have a portable toilet within their leased area. So staff are drafting an amendment to the lease agreement and a staff report that'll come forward to council at your May 12th meeting. Elections, preliminary planning is well underway and staff will be participating in training from the Local Government Management Association to make sure we're following best practices and are in line with statutory requirements. In May, staff will let council know the key dates and what our work plan is. An update on council's strategic priorities will also come at your May 12th meeting. So you'll receive a first quarter financial report as well as an update on operational activities. You can expect to see our Director of Municipal Services here and letting you know the various projects that he's working on. And you can ask him for updates on any operational activities. Parks, Recreation, and Culture, we have our special events. So council not long ago indicated that you wanted to receive input on the draft special events policy. So what staff have done is issued notice to all community organizers, event organizers, nonprofits, and businesses that might be affected by that policy to provide their input. And we've also provided correspondence directly to those organizations that we know have hosted special events in the past, asking for their input, whether they'd like to meet with council in person to discuss the policy. What staff will do is summarize any written input we receive. And if there's an interest in these organizations to come talk to council directly about it, then we'll schedule the committee of the whole meeting so you can have direct interaction. Public art in Legacy Park, the last year's sculpture has been removed and we are in the process of confirming plans for installation of the new sculpture in May. I'm sure there'll be a small event to celebrate the installation that we'll keep you in the loop on. Engineering and Public Works. If you visit the aerodrome in May, you'll likely see new signage, and that is to improve public awareness of aircraft in the area and reinforce that access to the runway is strictly prohibited under Canadian aviation regulations. Roads and sidewalks, council would have been aware of a road rehabilitation tender that was issued about a month ago. We had to cancel that tender after we identified some errors with the material quantities, and we'll make adjustments and issue a tender as quickly as we can. Staff are reviewing the village's sidewalk inspection and maintenance policy, and we'll identify any repairs that are required and have those performed in the second quarter. And that is CAO report. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Councillor Beekwood.
To the chair. The CAO or the Kaslo Racket Club, are they requesting the village put a portable toilet there?
Through the chair, no, they're looking to fund it entirely themselves. So
Okay.
just wanted permission since we are the property owner.
And the second question, the road rehabilitation tender, do you think then we'll be able to get some of that done this year?
Through the chair, yeah. So when we initially issued the tender, the proponents indicated that the work could be done in 2026, not a problem. Just need to regroup and reissue the tender, and at this point, don't see any issues.
Okay.
Any other questions? Counselor Bird?
Through the chair, as part of this paving program, could we make those level speed bumps on the ring road that are done with paving?
Through the chair, it is entirely possible. So our Director of Municipal Services has been asked to read the recommendations from the report that was done in 2020. So 2025, you did that report. So once he's had a chance to read it and prioritize what needs to be done, then we can take a look at it. I can't recall exactly what it said for Ring Road. I know that those speed humps were talked about in a few areas. So, yeah, perhaps when the Director of Municipal Services comes to the May 12th meeting, bring that up and let him know that that's something council's keen to see.
Any other questions? Okay. I just did for the business, the buildings and facilities and properties, the assessment data, is that's for all, even all properties, even those that are rented to other organizations, or just municipally occupied ones?
So, thank you, Mary Hewitt. Staff had a internal conversation. You know, there's a number of buildings that are leased for others to maintain.
Yeah.
And so we have a limited amount of funds to do the work. And we might have to make a decision about what we can afford to do with the funds we have. And so the buildings and properties that the village owns and maintains would be the highest priority. And then, you know, one building in particular that staff want to make sure we have accurate data for is the arena. So that would be one that we would put back into the mix if funding allows, and have to prioritize smaller or lower risk buildings if we need to.
Thank you. And on public relations, thank you for doing that and allowing extra opportunities for staff to get information. So it'll be good to have, and hopefully people will sign up for the electronic news subscription and get information that way. And it doesn't, you know, and you don't have to attend a council meeting if it doesn't work for you, but you can get the information. It's always posted on the website and on Facebook, but that will give another opportunity to get it right into their inboxes. Councillor Leithwood.
To the chair, for the CAL. If we get that CRIS grant that Polar Engineering is doing, that should help with identifying issues at the arena, won't it? Or will it?
So through the chair, if we perform a building condition assessment at the arena, it wouldn't include assets that are not owned by the village. So
Okay.
right now, the refrigeration plant does not appear to staff to be a village asset. Seems to be an asset that's owned and operated by the Arena Association, but could be worth a conversation amongst council to get clarity on what council wants to be included in its assets. Yeah, but it would definitely include things like the electrical power, major mechanical systems, like water and sewer, and structure like the roof and the columns and beams that are holding the building up.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next item, consent agenda, and there are no items there. So there's nothing to be removed. So we'll move into business items. The first item is the 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw 1334/2026. The recommendation is that the 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw number 1334/2026 be given third reading. Moved by Counselor Brown, second by Counselor Leithwood. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? No, that motion is carried. Let's get that over so I can see Rob. Right, and so the next item is the 2026 property tax rates bylaw. So there's a staff report and we had a presentation on the tax rates. So I'll read the recommendation that the 2026 property tax rates bylaw number 1335, 2026 be given first, second, and third readings. By Councillor Leithwood, second by Councillor Lang. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. And then, given the foregoing resolutions, that the May 5th special meeting of council will not be required because we've done third reading and we will be able to do the adoption at the May 12th regular meeting of council. So the recommendation is that the May 5th, 2026 special meeting of council be canceled. By Councillor Leithwood, seconded by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. All right, next item is fees and charges, Murray Pearson Memorial Ballpark. Councillor Brown.
I will recuse myself as I'm president of Kaslo Baseball and Softball Association.
Okay.
And
Will note. And the minutes will note that Councillor Brown has left the meeting at 6:40. All right, so CAO Baker has done quite a bit of research and has gone back into the email correspondence with members of KBSA and has a recommendation here that is in keeping with what the bylaw has is indicated. And I just want to note that council was fully involved in the development of the bylaw and the policy. And CO Baker was following policy, which is in his mandate. He is supposed to follow policy. He cannot make a judgment call to deviate from the policies and bylaws and procedures that council has duly voted on. So recommendations are made on that basis, and considerable effort has gone into studying what is done in other local communities in our region. So that information is presented for council's consideration. So the recommendation before us is that the 2026 KBSA be charged $30 a day for the ballpark in accordance with the village's fees and charges bylaw. And in the report, it outlines what those costs would be based upon the usage that they have indicated. It doesn't have to be that recommendation if there's Councillor Leithwood.
I'd like to move that KBSA be charged $1,200 for the 2026 baseball season.
Second that one.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Lang. Nope, we're just waiting for the unmuting. There we go.
Well,
Hey, go ahead, Councillor Lang.
okay, I lost my picture. I don't know what's going on here. But can
Oh.
you hear me?
Yes.
We can see you.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'd like to support this motion. I think the thing that swung my thinking on this matter was the fact that the registrations have already gone out for this year, so there's no opportunity to recoup the money from the user fees. perhaps next year would be more appropriate for an increase of this magnitude. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion before we call the question? Okay, all those in favor? That was an in favor?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
I-
So there is another recommendation, though, that prior to 2027, council be presented with an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw that would eliminate the $30 fee for the ballpark and implement an hourly fee structure of $9.23 for KBSA youth programs, $18.45 for KBSA adult programs, and $27.68 for individuals, nonprofit organizations, and $184.50 for commercial users. But that could be referred to, if you haven't had a chance to digest all of the information that CEO Baker has presented, and you want to have a more fulsome discussion that could be moved forward to another meeting. I think we need to do something so that we're not continuing to deviate from our established bylaws. And because, we do go to considerable effort to develop the bylaws, and we tend to be quite reactionary. And it's not that we're not sympathetic to it, or not in support of any of our not-for-profits. We have to consider the implications on the entire tax base when we're making some of our decisions. Well, all of our decisions, whether it's to spend money, to charge lesser fees, to go forward with works that aren't in our budget already. So, or it cannot be moved at all, and we'll just continue operating on an ad hoc basis against our own policies and bylaws. Councillor Leawood?
That's our decision to make, right, as a council.
It is.
I would move to refer this to another meeting so we can have more of a discussion.
Okay,
Okay.
so a motion to refer has been made. If it could either be seconded, or if it's not seconded, then there's no, we won't. Yeah,
Okay.
second. And so on the propriety of referral, unless I'm wrong, that's always how it's done at the regional district, is that when a motion to refer is made, we are only discussing the merit of referring the item versus the actual item itself.
You're the chair, so I can't speak as to why I'm supporting the referral.
That would be, yeah, if it's not the item, right? You're not getting into the details of the item that you get. If it's to do with why you're supporting the referral, yes.
I'm supporting the referral because I think it would be wise to elicit some information or commentary. If the referral is simply to put this same exact recommendation on another agenda. I guess that is what the referral is. But at that point, we can discuss it and make amendments.
Actually, I will go to CEO Baker because this motion was not made. There was simply, now, did we have to have it on the table, that motion, in order to refer it?
I'm looking for, could I have the,
Oh, the cheat sheet? Because I think I've messed up on it before. And it's because we haven't had a live motion on the table when a motion has been made to refer. So if there's no action taken on. Um,
So
well,
no,
it's actually not, yeah,
no motion was made.
to refer, so there's nothing to refer.
Correct. Yeah, so it would, at this point, the main motion would be that
Bring the item back to a future
item
meeting
come back to a future meeting.
rather than a referral motion.
So I should change my motion then.
No, it's all good. And it was seconded. So,
Yeah.
but Counselor Bird is right. It can be scheduled for another meeting. It would be good to know what meeting council would like to discuss it at. And if there's any additional information that's needed.
So maybe we'll just discuss, because next meeting we will have it, it's going to be quite loaded already with the, yeah, I think we'll have a lot to discuss at the next meeting already, and the urgency is gone because we've made the resolution, so, so it gives, if we discuss when to schedule another meeting at the May 12th meeting, and then in the meantime, submit any follow-up information that you feel that the CAO, you need CAO to get for you in order to make an informed decision. So bring that back to the next meeting. And so he knows what to look into for us, so we can have so we're not doing multiple meetings. So one, to discuss when would be the appropriate time, and giving it adequate time for CAO Baker to get any information, and what information would you need in order to make an informed decision when we get to that point. So it's just to move it, Councillor Lang.
Yeah, through the chair, I have a couple of things I'd like the staff to look into. Is this appropriate time to make that recommendation?
Well, can you just maybe email it to CAO Baker in between now and the next meeting, or bring it to the next meeting? Would that work? Unless
Whatever.
they're quick items.
Well, I'd like to know more about what other communities are charging. Like, I'd like to have at least 7 or 8 different communities.
So
For
that
one,
that is part of the package, Councillor Lang. CAO Baker has done an analysis of, reviewed the bylaws for RDCK, Trail, Nelson, and the Cusp in regard to recreational facilities. So this will give you some time to digest that between now and the next meeting. And was there something else?
Well, I'd like more than just the 3 communities. I'd like 8 or 9 communities, information. Grand Forks, I don't know who else, Selmo. I don't know if New Denver has a ballpark. It's whatever information's out there. And the other thing I'm confused about, if you'll let me go for a bit here, is I'm not sure how we're in conflict with the policy by making this motion. Like, at what point did we set these rates earlier on so that we're now in conflict by suggesting an alternative rate? I missed that part. Is there some way to explain that to me?
Well, the fees and charges bylaw was considered by council every time we amend a fee or a charge, the whole bylaw is opened up. So there is, and I know we have amended several items in the last 3 years. And usually in regard to a specific item, but so the bylaw states $30 a day, which is what was recommended by CAO Baker, because he has to go by our bylaw, which is what we have voted on. So he can't deviate from that. So the recommendation had to be following the bylaw. So we are making, as we can, as Councillor Leithwood pointed out, council, it's within council's right to make a change. or recommend a different action if we don't want to have the policy applied in a certain circumstance. Did you have a follow-up?
No, I'm fine with that. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. Councillor Leakwood.
To the chair. The information that we got from the CEO, I mean, those are the rates in their fees and charges, but I don't believe that's what some nonprofits being charged, because NACAS is charging $1,200 to their baseball. And that doesn't fit with what they're charging per day. So I think the communities might have their fees and charges like we do, but that's not necessarily what they're charging. So that would be more pertinent information, I think. What exactly are they paying? Nelson is charging 10,000 for multiple fields. Grand Forks is not charging anything. So, and last year when we made the agreement with the baseball, we didn't follow our fees and charges either. So I think, to me, this is almost the same thing as the grant and aid that we're doing. We're trying to provide opportunities for nonprofits. So having a different rate is no different than the grant and aid in my view. Anyway, something to discuss.
Yeah, but I will mention that what you suggest is, even though other communities aren't following their fees and charges, as we won't, to have any staff comb through the minutes of other, or, well, no, because that's what you'd have to do, because it would be by resolution that it's altered. Right? So then they would have to go through or contact each of these individual communities and say, what did you do for a specific organization to reduce their rate and
Could I offer some information?
yes.
So maybe we'll just talk about Nikasi. Their daily rate is extremely high. So it went to their council and they divided that $250 a day by 13 hours. So Nakus pays $19.23 per hour. So staff did comb their minutes to determine exactly what they pay per hour, $19.23 Nakus. But we could go through the entire province and let council know what everyone's fees and charges are. But in some respects, it's completely irrelevant. What matters is there's a certain cost that the village of Kaslo incurs to provide this service. And what council is asked to decide is what proportion should be paid from general taxation and what proportion do you want users to pay. Regardless of what everyone else does in the province, that's what happens in Kaslo. It costs a certain amount of money to run the service. How much is general taxation? How much is user fees? So I would say if I could kind of try to guide council, that's what I would focus on. What's the split between user fees and general taxation?
Councillor Bird.
Through the chair. So then what I would like to know also is if there was no baseball at all, how much are taxpayers paying for the maintenance of the field with no additional revenue from the users? Because years past, before there was baseball, there was still always a diamond that got mowed and looked after. So there is services that there's an expectation for years and years before baseball came along that the service was done and paid for by the taxpayers. And now we have users who are contributing extra money than was provided as a matter of course. So there's always been a service provided as a matter of course, and now we have the advantage of charging user fees. So what is the matter of course service that we have always provided? how much is that worth?
Through the chair, the cost is the same. So in the staff report, it outlines it's $50,000 to have that service roughly. That's it. So if there's no, if KDSA doesn't exist, it still costs $50,000 in village expenses.
Okay.
So what was the motion that we had on the table? So we can restate it. We know what we're voting on.
Something along the lines of that the topic be referred to another meeting.
Councilor,
I like that referral because I'd like the opportunity to email my thoughts to the CAO prior to that topic being back on the agenda.
so if there's any other research to do, so it's just whether we set the meeting date for the second meeting in May.
Yeah, and so staff aren't going to do any more work on this unless council passes a resolution to specifically
Be
do
direct.
something.
Okay,
So you can send me your comments and questions and I can answer them the best I can, but I think all of the information that's needed is in the staff report, unless council directions provided to do more research.
so you just want more time for discussion at a future meeting.
Through the chair, yes, and I'd like to be able to offer my own ideas. And with a motion like that, it's I think there's another way to go about this. And so I find that like the motion itself is restricted. I would like to be able to bring a different approach to how to charge user fees with facilities and compare it to some other current practices we already have. But that's the kind of sort of conversation that I would like to have happen before, like so much work goes into these things. And I think by referring the topic to another meeting, I'll have a chance to bring my own ideas and put it in writing. And then what CAO Baker is really good at is he can look at what I have put in forth as an idea and be able to fit it into either it doesn't fit at all or it can fit in a different in a way that's already that there is precedent for. So basically when these turns out to be rather big items come to the table, it is nice to be able to have a general discussion about them before the CAO goes to enormous lengths to give us lots of data. And in this particular case, I would like that opportunity to express some ideas that maybe the CAO Baker can understand and relate in another, form it into such a thing that is congruent with other policies and ways of doing things that we have in the past.
So do you want to assign a specific date? So not May 12th, because it's already going to be a busy meeting. Because we've already heard about a couple of things that are being discussed at that meeting. So the second meeting,
June, let's try June.
Okay.
Summer meetings are often not as big, but in the past, they've not been quite as long as some of the other ones.
so the first meeting in June.
Sure.
And so, and if you have anything, so then we're moving it with a specific date so that you can put it on agenda. Does that help? And then any input that council members have could go to CAO Baker in the meantime. And then hopefully that's adequate time because we don't know what's on the CAO's on his work plan at this point, so. Councillor Leithwood.
Just a question. Don't every year we look at the fees and charges bylaws anyway?
The chair, unfortunately, Kaslo has a habit of not looking at its
Oh.
fees and charges for years. So the $30 fee has been on there for several years and hasn't increased with, inflation and other expenses. So when it was first established, it might have made sense to be $30 a day. But it's obviously been eroded due to inflation over a number of years. And the same goes for many fees and charges for the village.
Right.
So business licenses, I think, haven't been reviewed in 8 years.
I'm just wondering if maybe it would be better to just like have a review of the whole bylaw rather than trying a specific this one, or the next council could figure that out.
Then that throws
Right.
them into it, right, as new contracts are being negotiated and end up behind again. Okay, so again, can we read about these? Yeah.
The discussion regarding the ballpark rental rates and the fees and charges bylaw be referred to the June 9th, 2026 meeting.
All right, so that, and we've just added the date, so that's considered friendly. So any further discussion? Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So we can. Councillor Brown back in. Welcome back. All right, so our next item is 9.5, overflow camping for Jazz Fest. So maybe before we get into a motion that ties us down to a specific action, if there are any comments or questions that you have for staff prior to me reading the recommendation? Or an alternate recommendation? Councillor Brown, Councillor Leithwood.
To the chair. I'm just wondering, would you have any idea the revenue that the village gets from Jazz Fest camping?
Not through the chair, not off the top of my head. I'd have to ask the operator to provide that detail.
I'm just thinking there is definitely a loss of revenue with Jazz Fest being canceled at this date.
Councillor Brown?
Through the chair, do we know if there are bookings that are already made for that weekend that would then have to be canceled?
That was in there. I think that was in the
Okay.
report.
Yeah, I feel like if there were bookings made before this announcement came out, that we should honor those bookings. Personally, is how I feel about it.
So then I guess the question becomes access to absolutely every overflow area that Jazz Fest was permitted, right? Because it's on the map in the there was quite a number of areas that were opened up specifically for Jazz Fest weekend. So it's on the Kaslo Municipal Campground on the one it shows. So in the area in front of the gazebo, right beside the picnic shelter, along the portions of the ring road, and in the logger sports area. And then under the trees where the tent camping and the, during May days where the food vendors located. So, I think we need to define exactly where, so, and it's based upon our decision, not where other people prefer to camp. I think we need to decide where, because it's got to work for all of the public. They know during Jazz Fest that there's going to be inconveniences, but yeah, I think we've got to be cognizant of that.
Mhm.
Councillor Leithwood?
Sure. I believe most of what the people that still want to come is in the Locker Sports area. I think some people have canceled, so I don't think we need to have all of them open.
Mhm.
I would support the Locker Sports area and Ring Road.
Councillor Bird?
Through the chair. So I agree. What it says is we were leaving Bimini Park as Bimini Park. It's not going to be a campground.
Mhm.
But the Ring Road, the Logger Sports, under the circumstances, can remain as overflow camping, but we will keep the park as a park.
And under the same terms and conditions that they're normally rented out as. So, Logger Sports area is all fully self-contained, so no tent camping. Councillor Lang, did you have any comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right.
Point, seems to me like looking at this map that there are places that have been like regularly used that are close to the main park where this square that says Jazz Fest.
That's
I
in
got
front of
it.
that's in front of the performance and right where the maypole dance normally happens.
Yeah. So okay, so it's under the trees that I see, like the campground has expanded beyond that loop. And that there's that upper level and just one row of campers, and so there could be tents there. I've seen.
Those
Yeah.
are included in the main campground.
Okay.
That's not the
That's what I was, because I figure may as well that, but
Yeah.
the rest of the park.
So just these two yellow lines that show on the ring road
Mhm.
and then the Jazz Fest area. Okay, so does somebody want to make a recommendation? Okay, so that the village allow use of the overflow areas on the ring road and in the Logger Sports area in the absence of Jazz Fest or something like that.
Should we put 2026 in there?
Oh, right, for 2026 only, yeah. So you'll probably do a better job with the words than I did, but so if you could read what you've typed, it'll sound way better. It was,
Mary, I was just looking for what dates Jazz Fest was supposed to be
oh, okay.
held,
Thursday, I think.
have it available.
Well, didn't it say between Wednesday and Tuesday were the days that it was allowed? Put that on my phone.
Just trying to do it without the Ring Road and Logger Sports area would be available for overflow camping during the 2026 Jazz Fest weekend.
Okay. Okay, so that's moved and seconded. My only fear is are we limiting it right? So the weekend, what does that comprise? Does it comprise Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or, right? Because there's indications that people come longer, right? If they're replacing, they're still wanting to come, we're not limiting them to like 4 days when they're anticipating that they'll spend longer. Right, so we're not going to open up for 2 weeks if that's what their normal booking is. But
Wednesday to Tuesday.
Wednesday to Tuesday, I thought that's what I read in the report. Yeah, yeah.
But they'll sound.
Okay. So, so from the Wednesday to the Tuesday encompassing that weekend, okay. All right, so that's, any further discussion? And you've got what you need?
Do you have a seconder?
Yeah, I thought. Okay, all those in favor? Or, yeah. The motion passes. All right, 9.6, Citizen of the Year policy. And this policy it has developed because the committee wanted to formalize it because the nature of it was quite a scattergun approach with the way we've received nominations in the past, and just to put a little formality around it so that there's expectations of what we want to know, because some of them we'd get, you get quite a few correspondences there. I just agree with somebody. That's not a nomination. We want it to have some substance. So the intent was to make it a little more formal so people knew what the expectations were and when it would be awarded and that kind of thing. So the recommendation is that the Citizen of the Year policy be adopted as presented. Okay, moved by Councillor Leithwood, seconded by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. 9.7, grant and aid for the Chamber of Commerce promotional video. So there is a recommendation in here. I think I might have downloaded this before we talked and we changed it.
Would you like me to read the?
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, no, it says the same thing, that the grant and aid be awarded to the cows.
My mistake.
So CAO Baker and I discussed this during our meeting, and rather than have any of the funds come from the municipal grants budget, I suggested that we put the full grant through the RDCK community development, which would leave us funds available for requests that come for later in the year for municipal grants. And then we're not closing the door on any other organizations that may come forward that need funding in the future, so that the recommendation would be that the grant and aid be awarded to the Kaslo and Area Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $5,000 for their promotional video project, funded from the village's allocation of RDCK community development grant funding. Moved by Councillor Bird, seconded by Councillor Leithwood. Any discussion? Go back to these. I only did one in favor. Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Special event, financial assistance. So this that went through the events committee, and we had a discussion about it. And the recommendation is that the Kaslo Area Chamber of Commerce be provided a grant and aid for the 2026 Kaslo May Days event, including in-kind services valued at $6,850 and a cash grant of $500. Moved by Councillor Bird, seconded by Councillor Brown. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Is carried. And special event financial assistance for Show and Shine. The recommendation, again, this has gone through the events committee, that the Kaslo Show and Shine committee be provided a grant and aid for the 2026 Kaslo May Days event, including a cash grant of $500. Moved by Counselor Brown, seconded by Counselor Byrd. Any discussion? All those in favor, or anyone opposed? Sorry. Quit switching it up.
Keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, just always putting your hand up. All right, so that motion passes. And okay, next is the McDonald Creek Water Service Agreement. The recommendation is that the Village of Kaslo fully execute the operational and maintenance service agreement with the Regional District of Central Kootenai for the McDonald Creek Water Service Area for a 5-year term beginning January 1st, 2026, as presented, and further that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the village. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leithwood. Any discussion? Oh, okay. Councillor Lang. Can't miss your hand.
Yeah, okay. Through the chair, I just a kind of a silly question, but I assume that RDCK has agreed to the terms of this agreement. I was just curious who was negotiating on their behalf.
It's been at our shared or North Kootenai Lake Services meeting a couple of times. And it was voted on, and it will come to the June meeting or the May meeting, right? The May meeting for approval. Because the recommendation out of the North Kootenai Lake Services Committee is that the RDCK agree to sign. So it was a collaborative effort between regional district and municipal staff.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion was carried. And now we have several licenses of occupation. You, Councillor Bid?
I must recuse myself from the first one because I work for Eric's Meat Market.
Okay. So were we just, we were gonna leave the organization. I forgot I was gonna touch base with you again. We'll just leave it. Yeah, okay. All right. We'd had a brief discussion about, because there's another item on the agenda regarding the temporary licenses of occupation and whether we discuss that first so that Councillor Byrd could be here for that discussion, but because what we do later won't affect what we're doing this year for these, because it's not going to impact these applications because they've applied based upon the existing policy. So, for the license of occupation for Eric's Meat Market, the recommendation is that the village issue a 5-year license of occupation for curbside patio to Eric's Meat Market Limited upon receipt of all required documentation, including proof of insurance and RDCK building inspection approval. Moved by Councillor Leithwood, seconded by Councillor Brown. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion carries. All right. Our next item is a license of occupation for Taqueria Tiburon, if I'm saying that correctly. The recommendation is that the village issue a 5-year license of occupation for a curbside patio to 1521870 BC Limited upon receipt of all required documentation, including proof of insurance and RDCK building inspection approval.
Move for discussion.
Moved by Councillor Leithwood, seconded by Councillor Lang. And discussion?
To the chair, when we issue a 5-year license, and but we changed the policy. What happens like after this year? Do they follow the old policy or go with the new policy?
Through the chair, so the licenses are written in such a way that if the village changes its rules, then and they can either agree, or if they don't like it, then we cancel the license.
Okay,
So
okay, thanks.
And conversely, if it hasn't worked for the public,
Right,
there's the opportunity to
Right.
to not renew it for the next year. And Councillor Lang you had comment? No? Okay, you were just seconding.
No.
All right. Councillor Brown.
Through the chair, with the Taqueria being in a new building, does this license give married to the business, or is it married to the business or to the building owner? Like should a different restaurant rent out that space, or should they yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if it's specifically attached to the people who are renting the building or to the building itself.
Probably a combination thereof.
through the chair, so it's each license is given to the business owner and it's non-transferable or assignable. So if the taco business no longer needs it, well, then that's it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Anyone opposed? That motion is carried. And the next one is a license of occupation for the Front Street Pizzeria. Recommendation is that the village issue a 5-year license of occupation for a curbside patio to Front Street Pizzeria upon receipt of all required documentation, including proof of insurance and RDCK building inspection approval. By Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leetwood. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Councillor Bird.
through the chair, in our policy, which I should have read for now, is there a limit to how many patios there can be on Front Street?
There is a limit to the number of parking spaces, which is 10.
Okay, so that's within there. And is there any expectation of that the patio actually gets used more than 3 days a week, or is that in the policy that? No. I just remember from 2020, I guess, that a lot of people being frustrated that there was a patio there and yet the business was only open like 3 days a week. But
Yeah, I don't believe that, pretty sure the policy does not stipulate that there has to be a certain expectations.
What if council wanted to add additional conditions? That the license is contingent upon a certain amount of usage, then that can be added to the license.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Bird.
through the chair, yeah, I think there'd be an expectation of at least 4 days open during the week, barring unforeseen. I mean, anything could happen and you can close down, but 3 days a week and to use up 2 parking spots is probably would get people irritated.
So whether it, in the application, it indicates Tuesday to Saturday, 3 to 8. So whether granted on the basis of their request.
Okay.
And then it was also wording to the effect that and expanded, so projected hours of operation would be from 3 to 8 and expanded throughout the summer to include a lunch service depending on staff availability and evolving business climate due to externalities such as effects on global conflicts on supply chains, food, and other input costs. But it does state Tuesday to Saturday in the correspondence in the application. Would you like that to be added?
Would there, through the chair, would there be wording to, based on your application and based on your stated hours, you are getting this, somehow tying the application, the words in the application to the permission to use the 2 parking spots?
Through the chair, we can make sure that the tie and the license. If council feels like the terms and conditions of the license have been violated in some way, meaning that the assumptions on which the license was issued are no longer being, I don't know, are no longer true, then you can revoke the license.
So, and who moved that? Because we're adding something additional to it, so.
Hasn't been any motion to
Oh,
amend.
okay, I thought we had made a motion.
It was talked about, but there's no motion to amend, there's only the main motion.
Okay, no, that's what I meant. So we had made the main
Yeah.
motion, just whether it's so,
No motion to amend, just the main motion.
but the main motion was made just to grant it on the original basis with no additional. How do we introduce that, the additional condition? As a subsequent motion or?
No, a motion to amend, so you
Okay.
either, in
Okay,
this case, it sounds like you would add words to the existing motion.
right. Councillor Lethal?
Through the chair. I understand where you're going with that. I think that's a little bit tricky because the cost of putting the patio together is fairly expensive. So whether it's used 4 days a week, 5 days a week, they're putting out that initial cost. So I don't support amending it so that it has to be certain hours. I'm just going to go on good faith as to what they are saying in their application.
So it wouldn't be a friendly amendment, it would be. So if Councillor Bird would like to have that amendment made, we'd need a seconder and to discuss the amendment.
I'm fine with going forward with the motion as
Worded. Okay. All right, so on the motion as it appears in the agenda, is there any further discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. And item 9.14, 2026 UBCM Next Generation 911. So the recommendation is that the Village of Kaslo support the Regional District of Central Kootenay Kootenay's application to the Union of BC Municipalities 2026 Next Generation 911 program, and further that the Village of Kaslo approve the Regional District of Central Kootenay applying for and receiving and managing the grant funding on its behalf for the proposed regional NG 911 readiness project. By Councillor Brown. Was there a hand for a second? Okay, second by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? Councillor Leetwood.
To the chair. So I just want to be clear. So we already have $45,000 for this. And so the recommendations that we give a certain amount of that to the RDCK.
No, they're making application to tie theirs together with ours.
Oh, okay.
They've gotten their own allotment, but CAO Baker would be able to explain it better.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt. So there's a chunk of money that the regional district's eligible for. And if they have municipalities within their regional district that support their application, then they can receive roughly an additional $8,000 for each municipality that supports their grant application. And so it's funding that would not be available to the village. It's only available to them, and assuming we support their application.
Further discussion? Councillor Lee?
Sorry, to the chair. So then, like, if they're getting an extra $7,000 because we agree, like, but we're gonna do our own thing with our 45,000. So that's not benefiting Kaslo, really. Is that how I read it?
Well, in the discussion, the proposed project will improve the accuracy and completeness of civic addressing, which is more of a responsibility of the regional district, right?
Yeah, maybe I'll, let me try to clarify. So village has $45,000. We have work to do.
Right.
We then hand the information over to the regional district. They enter it and share it with TELUS. And so the regional district's going to incur a cost doing the work that they need to do to receive all of their members' information and make sure that their database is up to date, and then share the information with TELUS. So there's a cost that the regional district's going to incur. What this does is offset their operational cost. And the savings in their operational cost will then result in a surplus at the end of the year that will go back into the service. So village spends their $45,000, does their work. The regional district is going to have to take the village's data and do something with it. It's going to cost them money to do it. It's just offsetting their operational costs that they would incur no matter what.
Okay.
Yeah,
I get it.
they do our emergency services work for us.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Right. So that's what I can see. And okay, any further discussion? Question? Anyone opposed? That motion is carried. And back to the agenda.
Going outside?
No, that's my phone.
Oh,
Yeah, it's on, even though it's on silent, it still buzzes.
okay.
So I'm
Kind of like a trombone.
All right, so temporary license of occupation in commercial center. So the recommendation is that staff undertake a review of the village's temporary license of occupation in the commercial center policy and report back to council with recommended amendments. Moved by Councillor Leithwood, seconded by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion is carried. And other business, there is none, no motion served, no information items. So we'll move to verbal submissions for public input in the meeting. And again, related to items on the agenda, and if you wish to speak, you could indicate by raising your hand and then state your name and your location. And once you've had an opportunity to speak, council can ask questions. Are there any questions from the public? Use the raise hand function so staff knows to allow you to unmute. I don't see anyone. Right. So then that brings us to the end of our regular meeting. So the recommendation is that the regular meeting of council be closed to the public pursuant to, I'll have to go to the online version here to get the appropriate section. So be closed to the public pursuant to the Community Charter Section 91C, Labor Relations and Other Employee Relations. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leithwood. All those in favor? It's carried. Now in recess, and we'll take a few minutes break while we get reset up. And thank you all for joining us this evening.
They're on that, Jen.